Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Kirsten, who is a Reinvention coach and strategist and the international best-selling author of Next Act, Give Back. Kirsten, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, so I love when you hear, like, what are you? And you're a reinvention coach and a strategist. And I love to think, okay, how do you describe that? And what is that? Because reinvention kind of is self-explanatory, but how do you coach somebody to, reinvent themselves personally and professionally? And we'll get into that in this interview because I really am excited to talk about how that relates to personal brand and all of that. But give us a little bit of background. What led you to become the reinvention coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I reinvented myself. I mean, that's a pretty easy way to say it. So, I had a career in working with international nonprofits. I started and managed programs in about 10 different countries, and I've been to over 50 countries. And I helped fundraise about $20 million over the course of my fundraising part of my career. And I got to a point where I kind of woke up one day and was like, what am I doing? I'm in my mid-40s and this isn't what I want to do for the next 20, 25 years of my life. And so what else could I do? Through this whole process I talk about it in my book, I figured out what I wanted to do. And what I love is really this idea of ideas. How do you take your idea and do something with it? That idea that's been swimming around in your head for a while and you keep telling yourself, no, that's not viable or whatever. Yeah. How do you take that and do something with it? And so what I found and how I became a reinvention coach is that there are a lot of people now that are in their 40s and 50s and who are looking at the idea of retirement and just saying that is just not, retirement is changing. And we don't want to keep doing what we've been doing, but I'm also like nowhere near ready to retire. And so what else can I do? And I kind of describe it as your first career is something that you maybe do for somebody else. You're working hard to implement somebody else's dream. And then your reinvention is about really making your own dream happen.
Yeah, kind of like the thing you've always had in the back of your mind and you wish you could do, but you never knew how to do it, and now or never take the leap, but please guide me and coach me and help me because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right, exactly. And so I help people figure out what it is they want to do and how to make it happen. And that sometimes we go really deep into who have you been, who are you now, and who do you want to be?
And I'll bet you because I didn't know you were going to say that, but as you were describing that sentence there, the word fear jumps into my mind. I'll bet you deal with the people that have a lot of fear, like, okay, here's who I've been and where I want to be, but oh my word, what do I do to get there? And their fear holds them back, right? Because it's like, well, that cushy job with the salary and the benefits, and I've got a family, and if I started on my own, so what do you do when people are talking about fear?
Yeah, and that is a big deal. And I mean, imagine if you've been working for a company. I was talking to a woman the other day who had worked in a company for 16 years, and now she wasn't necessarily wanting to go off and start her own business, but she wanted to switch careers and find a career that had more meaning to her. And so, part of the fear thing is figuring out, what are your limits? Are you somebody who has dreamt or dreams of having their own business? Yeah. Or are you just like, no, that whole 3-year startup phase and running my business isn't for me? But I could switch careers, and kind of knowing what it is. What's your baseline? And then working from there. And that I find really helps people control their fears.
Yeah.
And then really getting clear, coaching language. We have this idea of the saboteur and then the leader within. And your saboteur is that voice in your head that tells you can't do stuff, and that, that's scary. And your leader within is the voice that is really telling you, I'm strong, I can do this, I want this, I'm going to go for it. And how to kind of like send that saboteur off to do some sort of other chore, go make coffee while your leader within takes the lead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really big, because I hear all the time people these days talking about, how to bust through that fear. And what you just described there makes me think too that some of your clients, have that career path and want to break out on their own. And I wonder if you've seen this. Back in the day, starting your own business was a big old thing, and it was pretty much like, buy a franchise or whatever. But now, a lot of people are doing side hustles while they still are at their job, and many of the side hustles starts with intellectual property that they already have in their head that they've dealt with, and kind of gets down to that passion that they're good at. So do you find when you're working with people to reinvent themselves, it's not necessarily let's go buy a McDonald's franchise. Let's talk about what would you love to do and what turns you on to help other people, and let's turn that into a business, because now that's like thought leadership, and that's monetizing, maybe an experience you've gone through. What do you find that is kind of the direction that you lean toward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I specialize in people who are looking for, well, I like to say they want to do something good for themselves, but they also want to do something good for the world. So like people who, like, I don't have anybody coming to me and saying, I want to become an investment banker.
Right.
But I have a lot of people coming to me saying exactly what you just said. I want to start my own business. I have a story to tell is something that I hear a lot. Mm-hmm. I did this incredible thing in my life, or so for an example is I work with a woman who is a celebrity stylist, and she has a story to tell, and she wants to talk about the vulnerability of beauty and what that means, and based on her experience. And so I'm working with her to help her launch her new career, because she wants to reinvent her career through the idea of her story and writing a book and helping people with, we don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but that idea of beauty and the vulnerability of beauty and what that means to people. So I think, I think that you're right in saying that we're at a time when almost anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about, when I speak, because I do a lot of speaking engagements, I talk about this idea of passion versus curiosity. And Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer, talks a lot about this. She's been talking a lot about this, but I'm not a big passion person. I don't really know what my passion is. I've never had that one thing that was that's what's drawing me. And I think that a lot of people are like that, right? There's this pressure to have know your passion and go for your passion. And and I think when you don't have that, you get stuck and you're just well, I don't know my passion, so I can't move forward. But everybody can be curious. And, there's all, different things that we're curious about in life. And so if you just follow that curiosity and see where it leads you, there's a good chance that you're going to find that business idea and how to, and figure out how to move it forward.
So I liked how you described that, and it made me think of something that I think you would probably want to advise clients that you coach, because it's great. Be curious about it. That can help unearth that passion without the pressure. But I would wonder if there's a huge difference between curiosity and passion in this sense. if you jump all in and you're past side hustle and you haven't shifted the gear from curiosity to passion, well, now if you're just curious about something, if the first roadblock comes up, yeah, I'm done, I'm going to jump off into something else. You need to be all in, and you need to really be dedicated and burn the boats, so to speak. So what do you find with people that, yes, be curious about it so that you don't have the pressure to find that one purpose that you were made for, but once you do find that purpose and that passion, now you're past curiosity, you better jump in with both feet.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with that.
And I think
there are
meaning that. I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, here's the thing: is I don't know anybody who has started a business who hasn't course corrected. In the sense that some people start their business and then they realize that they're not that interested in what they're doing, and they change, or they find that there's one aspect of what they're doing. Say you start a marketing business and really what you love is helping people identify their personal brand. And then you hone your business in on that branding part instead of just being like a digital marketer or something like that, right? And so I think approaching something from curiosity allows you the flexibility to say, okay, that's not quite right. Like, let me shift a little bit. Because if you're going to go through the trouble of reinventing yourself and, whatever that means to you, why would you do something that doesn't make you happy? It just, it's too hard to do that. Yeah. It's too hard to reinvent yourself, so why be unhappy in doing it?
And based on what you were saying, like the demographic of about who you are working with, you're not working with Gen Yers. You're working with people that are seasoned, that are looking for the next stage of their life, and it's like, I don't have the time to mess around with, let's just get it right here and make this a reinvention. So I think that's huge. I want to touch on something you mentioned here, and we'll kind of wrap up the interview and the conversation with this concept of personal branding, because we can talk for about 4.5 more hours on that one topic alone. But where do you work with clients on that personal brand? Because that really is bringing your story to life in a unique way, right?
Yeah, and there are 3 ways that I work with people, because it's so true. When you come out of working for a company, what you don't realize, and you start your own business, what you don't realize is that you really are the brand. And even if you have, you name your company something else, you're still the brand. And so that can be, that's a very vulnerable place to be if you're not used to it. Well, let's face it, it's a vulnerable place to be even if you are used to it. Yeah. So being able to put yourself out there in a way that you feel good about and that people can relate to is something that, it takes some time, and for a lot of people, you have to work through that. And that's one of the things that I do with my clients is what's that vulnerability feel like, and how do you work through that? How do you get to that person that you're putting out there? And then, the other thing is, the second thing really is, what's your voice? What's your message? What do you want to say? And here's the thing is that, again, if you've been speaking for a company or somebody else for a really long time, it takes you a little while to find that thing that you want to say. Because you're kind of used to saying the party line, right? Yeah. And now you're just like, oh, wait, I can say anything I want? I can actually give my opinion and really stand up for something, become a thought leader. That's powerful, but you have to do it in a way that feels right for you. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming. And then, finally, I think the third thing is with your, it's kind of back to if you're going to go through the trouble of reinventing yourself, have fun with it. And it's the same with your brand. If it's kind of fun to hire a branding agency to play with you a little bit and figure out what is it, how do people see you? How do you want to be seen? And then settle on something that feels fun to you and that you're excited to put out there. Because again, you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that voice is huge. And I think that you need to do some thinking and whatever you want to call it, awareness, or have someone coach you through, your first pass at what is my voice probably is not your correct voice. So I think that I remember years ago going to a training where they're like, here's how to really get down to the heart of the issue. You ask someone the question, and it's like, oh, that's a really good point. Why is that important to you? And it's like, oh, well, because, and you're like, oh, yeah, I never thought of that, about that piece. How, and you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And of course, there's a point where it's like, hello, just quit asking me questions. But 3 or 4 levels deep, now you really get to the heart of the matter. So how do you help someone get to that what is my voice position?
Yeah, pretty much what you just said. We dig. And it depends on the person. Like some people like to write, and that's how they dig, how they dig into what it is they're really trying to say. Some people like to talk it out. And so I actually encourage a lot of people to write books. And, it's fairly easy to write and self-publish a book these days. And, we all know that books for the most part aren't big money makers. Like most people don't do it to make money, but the reason that you should do it, I encourage people to do it, is because then you figure out your voice and you figure out your story. And who you've been, who you are now, where you're going, and you figure that out for yourself, and you also learn a lot about other people, because one of the things that you do when you write a book often is interview other people.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In fact, I've said something pretty similar to that for years, where I feel like there's a disconnect between your head and your hands. Meaning, you could say to someone, "Oh, write that book," or "Write me a 4,000 word blog post," even, and people go freeze up. Because it's like, ugh. But yet if you got them on a podcast interview and said, "Hey, tell me about your business," they could talk to the cows come home. Or, "Hey, what makes you different in your industry?" Oh, they could tell you all that. So sometimes just doing something over and over and over again helps you clarify what you really do, and then help that voice comes forth. So I think that's a really, really huge point. So what's the best way that people can reach out, connect with you, maybe get a copy of your book, and learn a little bit more about your program?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get my book on my website, and I'll spell that because my parents got creative with my name. So it's KirstenBunch.com. So it's KirstenBunch.com. And you can get the book there. You can also sign up. My blog is called Change the World in a Hot Flash. So you can sign up for the blog, and that comes out weekly. And also, I'm more active on LinkedIn than anywhere else, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I love to just have conversations with people. So, if you are at a point where you're asking what's next, and think of yourself as somebody who's ready to figure out that question, answer that question, then give me a call, and we'll have a good conversation, I promise.
Neat. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much for your time today. It was really great chatting with you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.